Boop. Happy Wednesday. Today is Wednesday, March the 31st, 2021 of Holy Week. And today's daily Bible readings come to us from Isaiah 54 through 9, and then Psalm 70, Hebrews 12, 1 through 3, and then John 13, 21 through 32. And I'm going to look at the text from John and talk about dining with the devil. So, I don't know that many of us would willingly break bread with our enemies, would share a meal. And sometimes, you find yourself in that situation, but, you just, party or something, and, you're a frenemy or your mortal enemy. And, you kind of have to. But I don't know that a great many of us would willingly set that aside. But Jesus here knows what's going on. He knows what's going on with Judas. And still breaks bread with him, has this final meal. This, ends his ministry on earth with this meal here at Passover time, as the celebrations are going on in Jerusalem with his disciples, one of whom is Judas. And it's how he points out his betrayer, because he tells everybody somebody's going to betray me, right? And the image is that they're all kind of at this table, and it says reclining at a table, and it's not like a table like I'm sitting at here. They didn't use tables and chairs. It's more like you had kind of a low table and everybody sat on cushions and kind of laid on their side. And so you reclined literally at table, and you kind of were up against other people. And if somebody wanted to talk to you, they kind of had to lean into your chest kind of thing. And so that's why you get this image of, talking about the beloved disciple who's leaning against Jesus. And Jesus, drops this bomb that one of y'all is going to betray me here tonight. And it's interesting because Peter, the big strong disciple that we all think of, is scared to actually just outright ask Jesus who it is. And so he kind of signals to the beloved disciple, who probably is John, who's leaning against Jesus, he's like, ask him. And so he asks him, and Jesus says this thing. He says, the person who I dipped this bread for, and who I give this to, this is the person that's going to betray me. And it's this image that kind of is astounding, that Jesus is sharing his table with his betrayer, with his known betrayer, right up until the end. Knowing what Judas was all about, knowing what Judas was going to do to him, but still sharing fellowship with him. And being troubled even by the thought, I think, that Judas had put himself in the position of being cut off from this very fellowship forever. And that's not just me saying that. You've got people who, like Chrysostom, one of the great patriarchs of the church, says this. He goes, when I read this, and I read that Jesus was troubled, he said, I really think he was troubled because he knew what Judas had let himself in for. That Judas, Chrysostom points out that Jesus had just gotten done promising them, all his disciples, all the support and all the fellowship that they needed in order to do the work of the kingdom, even after, things happened, which they didn't really understand at the time. And he was troubled because he knew one of them wasn't going to be able to enjoy any of that. That Judas had cut himself off. So Jesus breaks bread with his betrayer one last time. And in spite of this knowledge, he still gives him bread from his own hand. He could have called him out. He could have stood up and, when John was like, who's it going to be? Jesus could have stood up, flipped the table over and gone, that guy there, he stinks. But he didn't. That's what we would do, but not Jesus. When Jesus points out his betrayer, he feeds them. He feeds his enemies and sends them on their way, with a taste, the very taste of his goodness still lingering on their tongue as they go about to do their dirty business. So that's the DBR for today. It's Wednesday of Holy Week. Tomorrow is Monday, Thursday. So we'll be back for another DBR. See you later. Boop.